Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we are venturing into the flashy entertainment district with none other than our dearly beloved Uzui Tengen. I'm going to be your host today. I'm Emily, and as always, I am joined by Hana and Bryan.
Hey everyone. I'm here. I'm existing and I am really happy to see Uzui Tengen on my screen because that man is beautiful. But I'm here.
What is up? It is your fellow flashy slayer, Bryan. I am living my best life at the moment. Hoping to get entertained in this lovely district we'll be visiting. So let's dive in, folks.
I'll take the entertainment. Hold the district, please. Oh my gosh. We're in for a visual treat, though, and some spectacle this season, and that's demonstrated pretty quickly. So let's just jump right in. Our episode opens up with Uzui Tengen taking the boys away from the Butterfly Mansion and into the Yoshiwara Entertainment District. Now, for anyone who might not have seen an entertainment district or maybe wasn't aware of what one was before this episode and this arc, basically it is a small city or town that serves as a venue for debauchery and, as Tengen says, the vanity of the men and women who inhabit it. So things like gambling, drinking, sex work are all fair game in the district, and that's just the business that they conduct. What were your first thoughts on our poor sweet boys' reactions to this place as they walk in for the first time?
Man, I loved seeing Zenitsu being like, there's so many pretty ladies, and then getting punched in the face by Tengen. That was perfect. Like, so on brand for Zenitsu. I really love seeing them just getting the chance to also get a little bit outside of the Demon Slayer life, right? Get like a small slice of life, if you will.
Our sweet country bumpkins. We're kind of revisiting the whole whoa city. I think Tanjiro says oh, it looks like it's daylight out here. And they're just so overwhelmed. I especially loved the fact that Tengen was like, don't get out of this carriage. And the first thing they do is get out of the carriage because they're all so overwhelmed. It was so on brand for our characters, just totally freaking out over it. With Tanjiro just being about the lights, and Inosuke's like, there's people everywhere. And Zenitsu's like, all the pretty ladies, so on brand for each one. And had me cackling. I love them so much.
They're so funny, and that just continues through this episode. But I like the point that you brought up just about Tanjiro being fascinated by the electric lights, because we have to keep in mind that this is happening during a time where that is relatively new, and so it would have only been available in the more densely populated and kind of affluent areas. And so it's but how pure and sweet that he's just so intrigued by an electric light, because it's fire for him. That's all that it really has ever been.
Yeah.
He was selling coal in the city so that people could have light.
It's kind of a callback to when we met Muzan too, because he had the similar reaction in that city. He just he doesn't know how to react to cities yet. Like I said, sweet country bumpkin. He's just like, what? It's so cute.
So cute. Sweet, sweet boys. Oh man. Well, they're going to have plenty of time to get acquainted with this flashy entertainment district, because the mission here is to look for Tengen's missing wives. And at first we're talking about one of them. Yes, one of Tengen's missing wives. One of three. So shortly thereafter, this epiphany, we learned that Tengen and Zenitsu do not get along for a related reason. This is another funny moment that Demon Slayer handles really, really well as what comes next. Our boys have to dress undercover to infiltrate the houses of the Oirons, or the head courtesans where Tengen believes a demon lies in wait. He goes on to explain that his three wives, Hinatsuru, Makio, and Suma, have been sent undercover to try to find the demon, but he has not heard from them recently. So naturally, the boys also have to go undercover, as I mentioned, to investigate, but their disguises are something else. What are your thoughts here on the reveal of Sumiko, Zenko, and Inoko?
Oh my god. Peak comedy right here. I think it's hilarious that right before we see Sumiko, Zenko, and Yonoko, Tengen literally says, we have to disguise ourselves in a drab way. And then he proceeds to make them look like literal, like clowns, white makeup, bright red round cheeks, crazy makeup. And I just die every time. They're each like perfect for their characters, but oh my gosh. When I started watching Demon Slayer, I did not think I was going to be seeing our main trio dipping their toes in some drag. But it's expanding on this universe, and it's really exciting to see like what's going to happen next. Like, are they going to get away with this? Like, they're clearly boys, in my opinion, but just wild, absolutely wild.
I mean, you know what they say. We're all born naked and the rest is drag, right? So with that in mind, I feel like it's amazing. I loved every single part of it just because these boys clearly look wild. And I mean, I bet it was kind of a custom at that time, right? To present yourself in a certain way when you're trying to get sold. So I'm sure Tengen was doing his best. I'm sure he didn't do all of the work that maybe Makio, Sima, and Hanatsu could do. So at this point, right, they're just getting into a house. Like, they're just like, these are the bottom of the barrel. Take them, please. And it was just perfect.
Right? Like, these are your discount courtesans. These are the Ross version.
Make them clean the toilets, please.
Oh, our poor sweet boys. Something that is not specified in this moment, but that I like to imagine personally is like, who got them dressed up? Like, because if it's like that they kind of did it themselves, I feel like that's kind of believable. But also, I'm like having a hard time imagining Inosuke in particular, like doing that willingly. And then I'm like, okay, so if it wasn't Inosuke, was it like Tanjiro is like, this is kind of what I think that girls look like. Let me do your makeup for you. Or is it Tengen and this is his perception of what a pretty woman is? Because then what are his wives going to look like?
Oh my God.
Oh God.
I imagine like Tanjiro trying to put their makeup on and Zenitsu's just freaking out because he probably knows the most about women of the three of them, and he like Tanjiro had to like knock him out to do it.
And Tengen's like, yeah, this will work. You guys look great. Oh my gosh. Peak comedy, 1000%. And we're starting here for the rest of this episode. So they're all dolled up, they're ready to go, and the next prerogative is for them to be sold into service, which may prove to be the larger challenge. Zenko and Inoko are not sold as easily as Sumiko, regardless of how pretty and persuasive Tengen might be to the house courtesans. So, bye Sumiko, got sold pretty quickly because she looks kind and responsive. Zenko and Inoko are going to need a little bit more persuasion. So Tengen takes them and they stumble upon a parade of courtesans where they observe the traditional procession and this very traditional, almost dance-like movement through the town as she goes to attend to one of her top suitors, essentially. So this is like a tradition that they would have in the entertainment district. Is there anything important or anything that struck you about this careful tradition in the context of Demon Slayer?
I think we've seen a lot of tradition and etiquette in Demon Slayer. If we look back to season 1 of the Mugen Train, when we had the flashback of Shinjiro and Kyojiro doing that same exact process of unsheathing their swords, right? There's that part of it. So like in the Demon Slayer world, I think this kind of presents like the maybe slow burn of the arc that's coming forward, because we see her walking and like deliberately almost pausing before she takes her next step and very carefully selecting like which foot comes next and things like that. So I think it's going to be a very accurate representation of kind of how the overall conflict is going to play out, that it's going to be important to pay attention to details, that it's going to be important to try and critically think about what comes next.
Yeah, I think I've said this before, but one of my favorite things about Demon Slayer is just how rich it is in the Japanese culture. And I think this is one of those things. I actually saw like a TikTok video of this actually happening at some point in, I don't remember when exactly it happened, but and of course, like, don't be those cringe anime fans that comment on those videos like, I know what this is because I watch anime. Like, don't do that. But it was really interesting to see because it reminded me just how much like this show is introducing us to these new traditions that we're not used to as American viewers, because this is so rich in that Japanese history, and this is something very specific to the Japanese way of doing this. I think I won't take a deep dive into my thoughts on like what exactly it is that they're doing, but both Japan and America has like this system, but Japan handles it very differently. And it's almost like way more respectful. And like, you can see that people are like, oh, this person is like important. This person is, going to meet off one of her clients. So I find it very interesting and almost educational for us as non-Japanese viewers, which is something that I really, really like about the show.
I absolutely agree. There's a much heavier emphasis, I think, in a lot of Eastern cultures on tradition and, how's the right way to say this? Almost like the patience of the process of their traditions, if that makes sense. We have like a very, and this has spread like globally, so it may not be exclusive to the United States, but we seek a lot of instant gratification, I think, in a lot of things. And this process is not that. It's extraordinarily slow and measured. And, they mention in passing that the Oirons would have been well-versed in a lot of these different traditions. So like not only the fluid motion of the dance, but probably similar things like the tea ceremonies, which if you've ever seen one of those, also take quite a while, because it really is about the process and the journey more than the end result. It's about the ceremony and the ritual part of it. So I think that there's a lot to be said for seeing this demonstrated in a lot of different areas of Demon Slayer. It, like Hannah said, is educational because it's not something that we experience in a lot of different places in Western culture. And I think it's interesting that the one that they chose to hone in on was the dance and like this movement, this procession in particular, because we've seen that like dance and fluid motion is already very important in Demon Slayer. We've seen it with the Hinokami Kagura. So I think that that's also an interesting parallel between Tanjiro and this environment that we're being introduced to, is that there is like a dance and a tradition, and we're going to see how they're going to clash here in a little bit. So just caught my eye. I think it's a really beautiful, kind of strange thing for us to observe. But after they observe this, Inoko is observed by a woman in the crowd who quickly takes her away, where they wipe off all of her makeup, and they're pretty pleased to have purchased someone so beautiful so easily. I love getting these moments of Inosuke's pretty face, because we don't get to see it too often, but every time we do, it's wonderful. And how funny that he doesn't need a lick of makeup to be convincing, even knowing that he is the way that he is. That being said, poor Zenitsu is left over and has to play the shamisen very aggressively to be accepted into his respective house. What did you think about these moments for these two ridiculous goobers?
Oh my goodness, just wild. I too am very happy to be seeing Inosuke's face again. It feels like it's been so long. And it has, like, we really don't get to see his face very often, and it's almost like it takes you back for a moment when you're reminded, like, oh, he has this very like feminine, like pretty face. And to have, the house, like the people of the house, is kind of be like, oh my gosh, like we got this so cheap. And then also like the call to his muscles, like she's rather like heavy, or however they said it. Well, plump is good. It's more like strong. Like they're just like so confused, and it's so funny. And Zenitsu, sweet boy, very determined on that shamisen, very talented, but also kind of goes along with his ability to hear things well. I think they said like he's able to just pick it up after one listen, which also just is like, okay, yeah, that makes sense that someone with such good hearing would be able to do that. And he was a little aggressive about it. Poor dude is, just taking hit after hit this episode of being told he's ugly and having to sit next to Tengen, who's like, in his unflashy way, somehow even prettier. And the reason that most of these boys, actually, I think, except for Inosuke, the reason that all three of them got employed, because it wasn't until the lady looked at Tengen and decided to employ Sumiko, aka Tanjiro. So just wild, lots of fun, and it's just great to see them kind of outside of their comfort zones and just being wild and silly.
Yeah, I love how they kind of animated Zenitsu as he was playing the shamisen, because that lightning, he was clearly getting like pissed that like this is what he was doing and this was their next mission. And you could tell that there was still some salt left over from realizing that Tengen has 3 wives. So there's just a lot of like mixed emotions for Zenitsu right now, and he is playing his heart out though. I will say they're like, wow, he's really good. Kind of ugly, but good player. And they were like, that was just so cute. I was like, yeah, you could put him in the back, put someone else with a prettier face in front, give her some string orientations, and she's great. She'll sell off quickly. But I think Inosuke getting to see his face was nice too. I appreciate when we do get to see it, because I think it does somewhat remind us of gender fluidity. And I think that this is kind of being really well tackled here, is that like looks are very deceiving. And I like how they continually reference that, like, oh, they're so strong. Oh, they can do all these things. Like, those are things that women can't not do, right? Like, just because the look is there doesn't mean the content is the same. So I think it's really interesting how they're tackling this issue in an intelligent way that I think even American culture kind of fails to do in a certain way. Because it doesn't really grasp you. Like, people don't actually think about things like that when you look at an American TV show. So
that's completely true. I think that it's handled like as respectfully as it possibly can be. And without being disrespectful, I think. I think it's like just silly enough that it's like not disrespectful. It serves a purpose in their mission, but it is funny. So it strikes a balance very, very well. Yeah, I think in particular, I was struck by Zenitsu. Like, Inosuke's pretty face is so funny. Not terribly surprising, although I think that if he had his say, he'd be kicking and screaming the entire way. So there's that for him. Zenitsu, I love the like complete 180 that he takes here, because at first he's like so against everything. He's like, there's no way you have 3 wives, Tengen. Like, look at you, you're such a weirdo. And then all Tengen has to do is take the hat off. and then Zenitsu's like, oh, you're actually kind of a stud. And that makes me even angrier than I was before, because this explains how you can have 3 wives when I don't even have 1.
So jealous. It's so funny. And that's like the reason why he was so mad with the shamisen and doing it so well. He was like, I'm going to become the #1 Oiran in Yoshiwara. And it's all because of Tengen.
Which is also a little backwards.
It's like, Zenitsu, focus.
Oh, it's so good. Our boys. The point. Always flying right over their head. So Inosuke and Zenitsu are going to do what they're going to do, and hopefully they'll be able to work it out. But we cut back now to Sumiko, or Tanjiro, and he seems to be faring pretty well at his respective house. They note in their assumed observation of her that she is strong, and as he's helping to load some of the courtesan's gifts towards her bedroom, he accidentally overhears 2 of the younger courtesans discussing a practice called ashinuke, which means to like run away from the district without being able to pay off their debts. Sometimes they do this for love or sometimes for fear, and they're talking about somebody from their house who has recently done this. So he inquires a little bit further about it, and they're able to briefly explain what it is, but not before the lead Oiran appears in the doorway behind them. And Tanjiro discovers that the recently disappeared courtesan is probably Suma, Tengen's missing wife. He lies and says that she is his older sister, but he's so bad at lying that it's a wonder he's able to get through it at all. Hannah, this one is for you. What did you think about this moment?
Oh my gosh. I I die every time. You know, Tanjiro, we love him. He's such a sweet boy. He's such a good boy. So much so that he literally cannot hold a straight face when he lies. Like, what an on-brand thing for them to add to this story. And as a Tanjiro stan, I'm like, man, like, it just keeps getting better. Like, they just throw in these little funny moments that still call to his just like good nature. And he's trying so hard. He's trying so hard to get the information, but he's having such a hard time with it because he has to lie. My sweet boy.
I think this was really cute. And I love when they do those like 1920s cut screens. I think that's just so funny. And it's like Tanjiro is so bad at lying. He literally cannot get through it and is thinking of what to say. And it gets even worse when they keep like doing the black and white and like you see his eyes roll up and he's like getting animated even like derpier. It's just like that is peak comedy. And I love how the show is able to switch between these two dynamics. It's just so good being able to see these characters have to like fake something out here, but try and do it for a good reason. It's just so cute watching Tanjiro try and lie.
Try. Succeed? Probably not. Although I guess somehow they buy it. Like, I don't know how that happened. I mean, to be fair, we could rewind a bit, and I don't understand how anyone's actually buying their outfits in the first place, but you know, they've probably seen it all. They've seen it all in this district of debauchery. So maybe it's not surprising to them. Maybe they just don't care. Who knows? However, like the lie is so sweet and so pure, but it definitely gives that voice away too. He's like, I'm speaking through clenched teeth because I feel so uncomfortable with this because it's not who I am. But you can't know that because right now I'm not me. I'm Sumiko.
He's really struggling. All right, she's my older sister.
He might not have a career in showbiz.
Nope, not for him.
Oh, our
He'll
little
take the
bad
district,
actor.
hold the entertainment.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. All right. So he's struggling through it, but trying to get a little bit of information. And meanwhile, Inosuke is trying to do the same thing. He overhears that Makio may have gone missing. And so he is trying to learn more about this while simultaneously having to carry himself as a young woman. What a nightmare for Inosuke. Specifically told he can't speak because his voice is way too aggressive. So he has to grin and bear it in silence. Not his ideal situation. We pan pretty quickly after that to see a room filled with crisscrossing and moving kimono ribbons, tying up Makio, and we see a demon's lips in the dark, isolated, asking her who the letters she sent were for. This is a callback to the envelopes that we've seen Tengen hold, and so we can safely assume that this is Makio. This is very ominous as she's being tied up and effectively tortured. We have not seen many female demons so far in the show. What do you think about one of them showing up here in the entertainment district as opposed to maybe before? Tengen said that it made sense for a demon to appear in such a debased and vile place, but it's interesting, I think, that this is a female demon. What do you think that tells us about who or what she might be?
Yeah, this actually kind of gives me some Final Fantasy VII vibes. There's this place called Wall Market, and there's this it's essentially like entertainment district, but like Americanized. But you can definitely tell if we're seeing a demon in this, like essentially a red light district, she's got to be in on the action, right? She's either like a casino host, she is a bar owner, she is someone of importance. And that's the only thing that we can kind of know right now, because, right, you just know that there's got to be some connection to the actual aspect of running the entertainment district. With that being said, for Muzan specifically, being able to have someone in that position, that's a privileged position, right? Because, of course, wherever they are in the entertainment district, they have a lot of connections. They meet a lot of people on a daily basis, and she can keep tabs on a lot of things. So it's definitely a very powerful thing for Muzan to have. And I really like this kind of how they set it up, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm excited. She seems like a very, like you said, ominous presence, very powerful. But it makes sense. Like we're seeing our trio having to be women to like be able to get in. So it makes sense that like the demon that's hiding here might be a woman, because it's been called to a few times now that like Tengen wasn't getting anywhere with just him. Like he tried to go in as customer. He couldn't get any intel on anything. So he sent his wives in, and that's when he started getting intel, but then they went quiet. So and now he knows like he has to dress up these boys as girls to keep getting that intel. So it makes sense that the demon kind of has that same thought process. Like we need to, infiltrate to do whatever this demon is planning to do. And it makes sense for her to be a woman. And like Bryan said, it seems that she's a pretty prominent figure, possibly a high level Oiran, we'll get into that. But it makes me really excited because we haven't gotten many female demons. The ones we have kind of been just there for a moment and then they get defeated. So it's really exciting to see maybe, a different side to the demon world and have a really difficult fight possibly against a female demon. Super excited about that.
Agreed. And I think something that I'm struck by as well is, like I mentioned, we have not seen very many female demons, either in the ranks or in like, even the little flash we got of like the upper moons and the lower moons, the 12 Kazuki, one maybe. So it begs the question, like, could this be the one? Like, I don't know. And also like, I wonder almost why are there fewer female demons too? Are they possibly just less tempted than maybe a man would be?
I mean, we got Nezuko.
It's true.
We got Tamayo.
That's true.
We got Yushiro, but he was created by Tamayo, so
something different about them though is it was against their will. Do you think that's the case here again? And if so, is that an interesting dichotomy, I think, too, between turning a woman into a demon and a man who might want to?
Demonism is a parallel for toxic masculinity.
Boom. Women's History
There
Month.
it is.
Hashtag herstory.
Oh my gosh. Her story.
I'm really excited though, because like Tengen, I think right before the scene mentioned, like, could this be an upper moon demon? Like he's like talking to himself. He's like, this is like, they're doing a really good job at hiding. Could this be an upper moon meeting or upper moon demon? And, it's like, maybe it is. And is the first one we're meeting a woman? Like the story is definitely going a different route. And it's really cool to see.
100%. I'm excited to see more of her. I think that even though she's going to be bad, she's going to kick some ass, and I'm excited to see how she's going to fight. The ribbons are already really cool. So we'll talk more about it on next week's episode. At this point, I think it's about time for our favorite moments from this week's episode. So I will go ahead and go first. I love our three ugly girls. This was like top 3 favorite moments in both the manga and the anime so far for me. I remember just like turning that page in the manga and like I had no idea that this was the route that they were going to take, and I about lost it. It's just so ridiculous, and I can hardly believe that it worked, like I've said, because the 3 of them are so obvious and like they're not good actors. Other than Nosuke, they don't make pretty girls. They're not good at putting on makeup. It's kind of giving Mulan Saving China vibes with like all the guys from the army. It's just so funny. So that's my favorite moment.
Yeah. My favorite moment's a really silly moment. It has to do with Inosuke and Tanjiro. First of all, kind of going to that first moment where we're introduced to them as girls. For some reason, Inosuke's sticking his tongue out, and I really don't know why he's doing that. It's hilarious. But when they arrive in Yoshiwara on the little carriage thing, this little tiny thing that makes me go, "Aw!" Inosuke has his hand on Tanjiro's shoulder, and he's just like latched onto him, like, this is my friend, and I don't know what's happening. And it's so cute. It's just like this tiny little detail. You know, I love their friendship a lot, and I love to see it progressing. And you just see how close he is with him. He might not admit it, but he's just like, he's got his hand on his shoulder, and Tanjiro's just like looking around too. It was so cute. I loved it.
I think my favorite moment actually comes from Tanjiro. And it's it's one of the more opening scenes that we have when Tengen is like, I am a god. And then literally Zenitsu is like, literally, what are you a god of? You look like a D-bag. And then Tanjiro's like, what specifically are you a god of? And he's like, great question. You have potential, friend. Let me tell you. I was like, Tanjiro, bro, he's just being extra. There's no way it's real, but he like went for it. He was like, I believe you, sir. You are a Hashira. You must have good intent. So I just think it's so cute how, as the Kamaboko squad meets new people, they obviously are already an eclectic bunch, but how they integrate others into their social group is always an interesting feat for them.
1000%. And I'm excited to get to see them work with Tengen a little bit more throughout the rest of this season. I think it's a fun dynamic and an extraordinarily different one than what we just observed with Rengoku in the Mugen Train arc. So I'm looking forward to more. But with that, I think that we're at about time. So just want to thank you all for another great episode. It's already been an amazing start to this new season, and we're so excited to move through the entertainment district and, of course, the Swordsmith village shortly to follow. So we are very excited. Thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And don't forget to hit us up on TikTok, Instagram, at Hashira Half Hour, Twitter, at Hashira Half. And as always, umai.
Might.
Umai!